In June of 2021, I was hiking through the Arizona desert near the Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge, a scorching, desolate stretch of sand and rock about 150 miles from Phoenix. I wasn't supposed to be there alone, but my friend bailed last minute and I didn't want to waste the trip. I figured I'd stay close to the dry riverbeds, desert washes, since they're easy to follow and offer some shade during the hottest parts of the day. I had enough supplies, GPS, a satellite phone and a survival kit. I thought I was overprepared. I had no idea. On the second day, I set up camp near a deep wash that curled along a rock wall like an open scar in the ground. It was brutally quiet. No bugs, no wind. The kind of silence that actually presses against your ears. I boiled some water, made dinner, and climbed into my tent just after dusk. There was no moon that night, so everything outside was pitch black. Around 1 a.m., I woke up thirsty. I sat up to grab my water bottle when I heard something move outside, maybe 20 or 30 feet away. It wasn't the wind, it was deliberate. Something stepping lightly, pausing, stepping again, then silence. I held my breath and listened. Another sound, like something dragging over coarse dirt. I unzipped the tent just slightly and peeked out. At first I saw nothing. Then on the edge of the wash I saw a figure, low to the ground, crawling slowly. It was pale, hairless, and moving with this jerky, insect-like motion, elbows and knees bent the wrong way like it had never walked upright in its life. I stared, frozen, trying to convince myself it was just a coyote or even a hallucination. But then it stopped. Its head turned toward me, and even from that distance, I could tell it had no eyes, just sunken hollows where they should have been. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I didn't even blink. When morning came, it was gone. No prints, no marks in the wash. But I packed up fast and planned to head east, back toward the main trail and out of the refuge. That plan didn't last long. By noon, I noticed something strange. My GPS was glitching, freezing, and then jumping coordinates. The satellite phone wouldn't connect. At first I thought it was just interference. Happens sometimes out here. But then I found the same wash I'd camped by the night before. The exact same one. Same rock formation, same twisted cactus, same dry animal bones piled near the edge. I had walked in a massive circle without realizing it. I marked a spot on my compass, double-checked the sun's position, and started hiking in the opposite direction. 3 hours later, I was back in the same place. That's when I saw something new. Near the bones was a pile of stacked rocks, like a crude marker. They hadn't been there before, and on top of the pile was a strip of fabric, my fabric, from the inside of my tent. It was torn and soaked in something dark. At that point, I gave up trying to figure out direction. I just ran, didn't care where, just away from that wash. But no matter how far I went, every time I stopped, the wind would pick up and carry the same smell. Rot and sand, baking under sun, and I'd hear it. That dragging sound, sometimes close, sometimes faint, but never gone. I hiked until sunset, then collapsed behind a cluster of rocks. I didn't set up the tent, I didn't eat, I just curled up and tried not to move. When darkness fell, I saw the stars come out and something else. A light, a faint greenish glow rising slowly from the wash in the distance. It pulsed like it was breathing, and then just at the edge of that glow, I saw it again, standing now. Its limbs were too long, its skin too thin, and its head hung low like it was listening for something beneath the sand. Then it started walking toward me, not fast, not aggressive, just steady. I didn't wait. I grabbed my pack and ran in the opposite direction uphill, not caring what I left behind. I didn't stop until dawn, when I finally saw something that made me cry. Faint tire tracks in the sand. I followed them, found a group of researchers who had stopped to camp for fieldwork, and collapsed at their feet, dehydrated and incoherent. They gave me water, listened to my story in polite silence, and then one of them, a woman probably in her 60s, said quietly, "You went near the wash, didn't you? They always find their way back to that place." I didn't ask who they were. I didn't want to know. I left the desert the next morning, and even now, years later, I still dream about it. That same sound, dragging in the sand just beyond where the light ends. In August of 2020, I was driving from Las Vegas to Phoenix for work, trying to make it before nightfall. I'd taken a detour off the main highway to avoid construction and ended up on a long stretch of desert road near El Mirage, California. The GPS told me it would shave off nearly an hour, and I didn't think twice. But around 7 p.m. my car started sputtering. No warning lights, just a slow drop in power and then nothing. I rolled to the shoulder, surrounded by open desert, heat waves rising off the asphalt, and not a single car in sight. After a while of sitting and weighing my options, I noticed a flickering neon sign about half a mile down the road. It was the only thing out there, just a squat, sun-bleached building with a flickering vacancy sign. I grabbed my bag, locked the car, and walked toward it, figuring I'd charge my phone, call for help, maybe stay the night if I had to. The place was called Desert Shade Motel. It looked abandoned at first glance. Paint peeling off the walls, old satellite dishes lying broken on the ground, a sand-crusted vending machine with buttons worn blank, but the door was open, and behind the check-in counter sat a man in a faded uniform staring at a small black-and-white TV that wasn't plugged in. When I spoke, he didn't look up, just slid a key across the counter and mumbled, "Room 6. I took it and walked down the row of rooms. The numbers were worn off, but I found 6 by counting. The key fit. The room smelled of dust and something else I couldn't place, like metal and something slightly rotten. Still, the air conditioning worked, and I figured one night wouldn't kill me. I plugged in my phone, drank some stale water from the sink, and sat on the bed. That's when I noticed the door didn't have a lock. Not broken, just never had one installed. I wedged a chair under the handle and left the bathroom light on. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, quiet and vast. I tried to fall asleep but couldn't. Something about the room made it feel like it hadn't been used in years. The TV clicked on by itself around 11 p.m, just static, and I had to unplug it to get it to stop. Then just after midnight I heard a knock. Not a loud one. 3 soft taps, then silence. I didn't move. Another knock, this time lower on the door, like someone was kneeling. I whispered, hoping maybe the front desk guy had followed me to check in. But no response. Just another knock. Then the sound of slow breathing, right on the other side of the door. It continued for minutes. I stayed completely still. Then it stopped. I waited almost an hour before moving. When I finally peeked through the dusty window, no one was there. But something had been left just outside. A row of small, perfectly round stones lined up in a curve in front of the door, each one stained with something dark. I didn't sleep at all after that. At dawn, I packed up and went to the front desk. The chair I'd wedged under the door was now on the opposite side of the room. The man at the desk was gone. The TV he'd been watching was shattered on the floor. I called out, checked around, but the whole place was empty. I walked to my car, figuring I'd wait for a tow, but the car started like nothing had happened. As I drove off, I checked my phone, fully charged now. The call log showed a missed call around 3:03 a.m. No number, just a blank field. And in my photo gallery, where I hadn't taken anything, was a single black and white image. It was of me, sleeping in the motel bed. Except I hadn't slept, and the photo was taken from inside the room. I floored it out of there, no looking back. Once I got to Phoenix, I searched for the Desert Shade Motel. No listings, no reviews, nothing on maps. I even pulled up satellite images of the area. No buildings, just desert. A few months later, curiosity got the better of me. I returned to that stretch of road during the day, determined to find it. There was nothing there, no building, no sign, just cracked asphalt and heat. But as I turned to leave, I saw something in the sand, a line of stones, perfectly round, stained dark. In March of 2022, I joined a geology field team for a 5-day survey near the edge of Death Valley National Park. It was supposed to be a simple assignment: collect core samples, photograph sediment layers, and map erosion patterns along a dried lake bed known as Bennett Hollow. It wasn't an officially marked site, and we were only there because a recent minor quake had shifted the terrain and exposed a new rock face. The area was remote, even by desert standards. No roads, no landmarks, no nearby ranger stations, just miles of cracked earth and rust-colored stone formations that looked like ancient bones poking through the sand. We were a team of 5. Myself, 2 grad students, and 2 seasoned geologists who'd been doing this kind of work for decades. On the second night, we set up camp near a shallow depression, part of the hollow itself. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like claws across the earth. I remember thinking how strangely quiet it was. Even the wind seemed to avoid that place. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a strange sound. Not movement, not breathing. A dull rhythmic thump, like something tapping from beneath the ground. Not fast, just a single knock, then silence. Then another knock, and it kept going. I sat up, thinking it was one of the students playing a prank. But when I unzipped the tent, all the others were still zipped tight in theirs. I could see their silhouettes. No one was moving. The knocking stopped as soon as I stepped outside. The desert around me looked the same, empty, lifeless, but as I turned toward the depression where we'd pitched our camp, I saw something I still don't understand. The sand there was pulsing, rising slightly, like something was breathing underneath it, very faint, barely noticeable unless you stared. I woke up the others. They weren't happy about it, but when I showed them, they went quiet. We all saw it. The way the ground moved in a slow, unnatural rhythm, like something trapped and sleeping just beneath the surface. One of the older geologists, Paul, got real still and whispered something I didn't catch. Later I asked him about it, and he said the site reminded him of an old native legend he'd heard from a ranger long ago, a place in Death Valley the tribes wouldn't go, a cursed depression where the land itself was said to be alive and hungry. We all agreed to relocate the camp farther out the next morning, but that never happened. Around 3 a.m, one of the students screamed. We bolted out of our tents and found her standing barefoot, staring at her tent, which had collapsed in on itself, torn from the inside. The metal poles were snapped, not bent, snapped clean in two. She hadn't heard anything, just woke up to the sound of something breathing inside the tent with her, said she couldn't move, said it felt like fingers brushing against her spine. We packed up immediately. The vehicles were parked half a mile away, over a dune ridge we didn't want to drive over for fear of getting stuck, but when we got there, they were gone. Gone. No tire marks, no drag marks, just sand. The tracks we'd driven in on the day before were erased completely, as if the desert had swallowed everything. We started hiking, trying to stay calm. We stuck together, used our compasses, rationed water, and aimed for the general direction of a ranger station nearly 14 miles away. By noon, we reached the ridge and found ourselves back in the hollow. Same depression, same cracked rocks, same faint pulsing in the sand. We hadn't turned. We hadn't backtracked. We had walked in a straight line and somehow ended up exactly where we started. That's when Paul broke. He just sat down in the dirt and said it was the ground. That it shifts things, not the terrain, us, that it loops you, turns you without you knowing. He refused to move after that. The other student, Mark, started digging near the pulsing area, said he needed to know what was under there. I told him to stop, but he didn't listen. He dug until he hit something hard, not rock, not bone, something metallic, a grate, a square iron grate, rusted and half buried. We all stood around it not knowing what to do. No one wanted to touch it, but then we heard it again, the knocking, this time from under the grate, 3 times, slow, hollow, then silence. Mark leaned in and said something into the hole, and whatever was beneath answered. We didn't hear words, just a low, rumbling moan that made the sand vibrate beneath our boots. Like a warning. We ran, no plan, no direction, just ran. I don't know how long we moved, but somehow by late afternoon we saw a helicopter in the distance, a private tour group. We signaled it down using a flare. When we got to the nearest outpost and reported what had happened, the ranger didn't even write it down. He just looked at Paul and said, "You shouldn't have camped near the hollow." I asked him what that place was. He said that there are parts of Death Valley that don't show up on maps for a reason, places that don't want to be found, places that can move when they want to. I've never been back. And sometimes, in the dead silence of night, I still hear that knock. 3 times, hollow, waiting for an answer. Some places aren't meant to be crossed, especially when the desert hides more than just sand. If these true tales made your heart race, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because the next story might come from somewhere even closer than you think.